Think we are live. I've got the live button. If anyone can hear me, will you please tell me, can you hear me and can you see me? You can type right in the chat box. We are live. If you are watching, you should refresh your browser window. So sometimes you won't see it because you have to refresh your browser, whatever you're using to look at the video on. So if you're on Chrome or you're on Safari, and I'm typing right there in the chat box. So if you guys can see me and hear me, let me know. Give me a little heads up. Tell me where you're from, where you're listening from. And we'll get this party started. Because I'm going to talk to you about what to do when life gets super crazy. And how do you make sense out of all this stuff? So we're going to wrap up the summit tonight. And we're going to do that. Can you guys see me and hear me? Would you let me know? Type in the chat box. I didn't see anybody typing in the chat box quite yet. I'm thinking some browser window. Lauren, hey, what's going on? I can hear you. Can you see me? More importantly, I guess you could listen. You can see and hear. Awesome. All right, high five. Andrea, you're here. Tell me where you guys are tuning in from, where you're listening from tonight around the world. I would love to know that. And in case you don't know who I am, I'm the person who's been talking and interviewing our amazing people for the summit. I'm Steph Gaudreau, the creator of the Women's Strength Summit. So thank you for being here. Kim is tuning in from Springtown. What's going on? A lot of Texans in the house. I like it. Sherry says she can hear me. Awesome. Pittsburgh. Hey, what's going on? Hope you guys aren't too cold over there. Olivia, hey, what's going on? Yay, Noelle. Hey, what's going on? Hey, one of our speakers, Noelle Tarr, is here. Sweet. Andrea's from Minneapolis. Andrea, you didn't go into the gym today, to Jen and Jen's gym, did you? Because somebody went into the gym there that watched the summit. Hey, Rhonda. Oh, so good to see you. San Jose, loud and clear in Billings. Love me some Montana. A beautiful, beautiful state. Cape Cod, my home state of Massachusetts. Shannon from Ottawa, Alyssa from Oklahoma. I'm so excited to have you all on tonight because we're going to talk 75 in Pittsburgh today. Holy moly. That's crazy. I was thinking it was cold there. We're on the West Coast. So we're going to talk tonight about what to do when life gets nuts. Because so often, you know, I've gone to online events like this, or I go to a conference and I'm super excited about everything I've learned, and I'm just bubbling and fizzing with excitement, and I can't wait to start implementing this stuff. It's the stuff that I learned. And then, you know, good intentions go sort of out the window when life throws you curveballs. And so tonight I want to talk about what to do when life throws you a curveball, when life gets crazy. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about that, and certainly answer questions for you if you have them. You just had a baby. Oh, congratulations. How wonderful. So nice. That's awesome. Christine's here from St. Petersburg. I'm running my own chat tonight, by the way. So if you see me looking off to the side of the screen, that's why. Yana from San Jose, Sean from Annapolis. What is going on, guys? So first of all, I don't know about you, but this has been an incredible 9 days. And I've been struggling since March 1st to really put into words what this Women's Strength Summit has meant to me and what it has meant to all of you, and the emails and the messages and the tweets and the Instagram comments it's blown my mind. I never imagined, I hoped, but I didn't know that we would have such a reach and such an impact. And if you have, you know, things you've learned and stuff you're burning to share, please email me, because I would love to know what you took away from this event. And heads up, tomorrow, best 9 days ever, tomorrow I'm going to be sending you an email with a surprise. So I want you to open it tomorrow morning. But I'm also, in the bottom of that email, when it says to, like, if you love the summit and you want to tell me, to hit reply, I read every single email. And trust me, you can ask my husband. I sit here and I read them out loud because it's so gratifying to me. And I think, so officially, I think we had 19,600 women and probably some guys. I know a couple guys registered, but 19,600 people registered to watch the summit for free. And this is, nobody here's like presidential famous, but it really speaks volumes about all of the people who were speakers on the summit, like Noelle, all of our wonderful speakers and their influence, the fact that they have so much integrity with their communities. And they were like, hey, I'm speaking at this summit. Why don't you check it out? And people did. And that's how it spread. I mean, I'm just tripping over my words here because I don't have the right way to express this quite yet because it's, officially not over yet. So, hey, from Atlanta, so that's kind of where everything is at. We just finished today. So I'll give you a little bit of a wrap up. Yeah, Olivia, right? Isn't that crazy? I haven't even looked at the video views quite yet. I can go back in and look at that later. So we'll see how many sessions were actually watched. It's just meant so much. And I'm so glad that you were able to participate and see these women speak because they are very moving. They are incredibly good at what they do. And they come from a place of genuine love for their communities and speaking this really important message. And I said this in the opening kickoff speech, which if you didn't hear it, I'll repeat it. You're still on the yoga day. That's good. I said this during the opening kickoff, which is basically, there are so many people out there who are really, and this is, coaches and thought leaders and stuff like that. And they're out there in the online marketing space and they're giving lots of information about how to manipulate your body and look a certain way. And those goals I didn't want to focus on for this summit. It's not to say that they're bad goals to have. There's certainly a healthy way and an unhealthy way to go about it. But the thing that I wanted to bring to the forefront here is the fact that there's a much deeper conversation about this sort of stuff. And so that was my goal, was to bring together all these women who are talking about the stuff that goes deeper than our skin. And we just had International Women's Day yesterday, which I didn't plan it that way. I actually didn't know the date until after I'd planned the summit. But I think it was such a great conversation piece. And it's like, hey, we're all here. We want to talk about the things that we are dealing with, the things that we face. And it's just been so moving. So I really, really appreciate that you're all here tonight. And I appreciate everybody who's tuned in. And so logistically, today was day 9, and we had some incredible speakers today. Julie Fouché just finished. She's talking about how to sort of balance a crazy life. She's a med school student and athlete. Dawn Fletcher spoke this morning, and she talked about how to stay cool when life sort of, and she focused more on competition. She's talking, that's her wheelhouse, is to speak to athletes, but how to, and I think those lessons are super applicable no matter what, athlete or not. Like, what do you do? How do you stay cool in the face of adversity when life throws you that crazy curveball and things are going nuts and swirling around you? What do you do? And then very first thing this morning, Jenny Labaugh talked about how to deal with sort of this chronic illness that she has and how she's not let it stop her. And I thought that was a really important thing to throw in. I've heard from so many women who say, I just can't physically do the things I used to want. I can't do them anymore. The things I used to be able to do, I can't do right now. It's not, I don't like that. So how do I get past that point? And so that's who spoke today. So those interviews you'll be able to see until the 12th. And, you'll still be able to see after I get off of this, this call right now. I'm going to take down day 6, I think it is. So I'm trying to remember my days here, but you'll still be able to see kind of the tail end of the summit. So don't think that I'm taking everything down tonight. I'm not. Those are still going to be available on a 72-hour rolling basis. And you can go to the main site and look under sessions, and you'll be able to see all the days listed out, and you'll just be able to click and see who's available. This live closing keynote will be up for about a week. So if you have to hop off, go deal with dinner, put the kids to bed, give them a bath or whatever, you can still come back and catch the rest of this. So that's just a little bit in terms of logistics. Couple of comments here really quickly. Noelle said, amazing group of women. Yeah, so many people wanted to participate, but also spread the word to their communities. Nailed it. I couldn't have said it better. Hey from Ola from Puerto Rico. Awesome. Thanks for joining us. Kim says, love the members in the Facebook group. Yeah, totally. So supportive, so helpful to each other. And Alejandra says, awesome summit, still listening and catching up, but so useful. Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. So I wanted to talk tonight about, my topic is what to do when life gets crazy and how do you handle that. Again, if you have great intentions and you're like, yes, I have all this energy, I'm going to do all these things, you get super pumped up, and then either that energy wanes, as you get back to sort of the daily rhythm of your life, or something really unexpected happens. And this kind of harkens back a little bit to the kickoff, the very first interview that went live in the summit, which was Dr. Anastasia Boulay talking about these unexpected events that can happen in your life. And I like that analogy because a lot of times it's just kind of smooth sailing and then something crazy happens and like it's super stressful or like something declines, and it throws a lot of us in a bit of a tailspin because we don't really know how to take our present situation and roll with the punches. And a lot of us, and I'm speaking from personal experience, so don't think when I say you, I mean all of you, and I'm totally fine because I do this as well. But I think there's a tendency to have this, like we want to hold on. There's this saying, let go or be dragged. If you've ever seen that saying, let go or be dragged, I think is very important because at certain times in your life, we like things to be very status quo. We like things to be very on an even keel, and we don't like change, and change is scary, and there's fear that comes along with change. But we have this tendency to want to grab on and hold on so tightly to things that are either changed and not acknowledge and be present in our current situation, or to want to remanufacture at great cost, whether it's our energy, our time, our mental and physical resources, our monetary resources. We want to recreate sometimes these, how our life used to be. And sometimes that's a temporary thing and we get over it and that thing passes. I don't want to sound, depressing on this call because I want this to be an upbeat call, but it's almost like, the death of a loved one. It's usually could be a very abrupt event, and it could be very unexpected. And, if you think about something different, maybe you've had a relationship that hasn't been working for a really long time. That could be another example. So how do you sort of take care of yourself and yet acknowledge and be present to all these other things in your life that are changing? And so I wanted to give you some different steps that you could take and walk away with something actionable. This is great to hear talk, but the whole point of the summit was to give sort of key actionable steps for you to actually do in your life or to think about and implement. So I wanted to go through some of that stuff. So go ahead and type in the chat box and let me know, first of all, and I'll get to these later, but are there questions that you have right now about what to do when life gets crazy? Go ahead and type them in the chat box, and I'm going to grab a sip of water. By the way, this is going much smoother than the kickoff because I spent 5 minutes trying to get the audio to work, so I'm already very pleased that this has gone much smoother. So what questions do you have about What do you struggle with when life gets crazy? Go ahead and type it in the chat box. So here are a couple of things that I recommend to my coaching clients. So here's like you're getting a little bit of personal coaching from me. The first thing is that you have to understand there is a hierarchy when it comes to your physical health. And yes, some of this stuff bleeds over into your mental health as well. But when things get nuts, things change, something throws a monkey wrench into your life, here are the things that I want you to prioritize in this order. You may not agree with me, and that's okay, but I want it to be food for thought. So the first thing is sleep. Sleep is extremely important. And if life gets crazy, I want you to prioritize getting enough sleep. So that's first. Second, after that comes food in terms of nourishment. And I don't want you to think about food in terms of dieting. I want you to think about when life gets crazy and things get super stressful, you're going to make it a game to think about, how can I add as much nourishment to my day as possible? And don't stress out about it, but if that's all you're going to do, I don't want you to worry about, oh, I need to count this and weigh that and do this and do that. That's adding, in a lot of cases, a lot of stress on top of stress. So I want you to think about, how can I really nourish my body? How can I give it the nourishment and the nutrition it needs? So that's two. And then the third priority, now I'm talking about the three main things here, and the three main things being sleep, nutrition, and exercise. Exercise actually would take a third seat to that. And so often when things get stressful and crazy, one of the things that we like to try to do is to exercise more control over ourselves by exercising more. And if you're doing things like walking and it's low impact and it's not killing you every time you do a workout, that's probably fine. A lot of this is highly contextual, so please keep this in mind. But if you're using exercise as a control mechanism in your life, when things get nuts, I want you to think about trying to put that at a lower priority. Now, here's how you would actually implement this in real life. Let's say you don't get 6 hours of sleep or more a night. That day you don't get to exercise, and I mean train, like you don't get to go push it super hard. You can walk and do low impact stuff, but I think that's a really hard thing for some people to understand or to come to terms with, is like, sometimes the more stressors I add, the worse the situation is going to feel, and the worse outcome I typically have for my health. So that's kind of the overarching thing I tell people. Like, if it's a temporary thing and like this too shall pass and you just have to get through the crappy stuff, first things first, sleep is the most important. Obviously, we want to eat and eat enough food. A lot of times if we get stressed, we don't eat. Or if there's a stressful event going on, we put all of our attention over here. And so then we start to suffer. And if it's something important, like you have to make important decisions, you've got to be mentally sharp. And so taking care of yourself and going to eat and nourishing your body is really important as well. And then exercise, try, if it's really stressful, keep it low impact. If you're really stressed, keep it low impact. And don't add more exercise. Don't think like, well, I have to get those endorphins, so I'm going to go out and run 3 times longer than I normally do and do 2-a-day workouts and that sort of stuff. So just kind of keep that in mind. I'm just kind of looking at the comments here. Consistency with eating and the gym. When things get stressful, I eat all the foods. Kim, yeah, so definitely focus on really highly nourishing foods. Things that come with a lot of nutrition and a lot of satiety. So if you're like eating stuff that's, a perfect example is something like popcorn. I don't know about you, but I could eat like an entire bucket of popcorn and I'm like, I'm hungry. This is pretty low nutrient value. So stick to foods that are high nutrient value and high satiety. Yeah, Tamisha, sad panda face there. Exercise and meal prep even when I get less than 5 hours of sleep. I know it's really hard, and it's hard to trust yourself. And this is going back to Jill Coleman's presentation, but like having a little bit of trust and say, it's okay if I don't, if I let my body rest and recover, it's all right. So I'm kind of scanning through the comments here. I struggle with quality sleep and time management, get overwhelmed, then shut down and watch TV. Super common one. I think right with that, it's really important to create an evening routine. And I'll talk about habits here in a minute, Rebecca. So listen up for that part, but creating a new bedtime routine, I'll talk about habits now. This is actually a perfect segue. So a lot of times when things get crazy, we revert back to old habits, or we get kind of unable to change our habits. And habit change is a really interesting one. So the first step, and this is all very, very quick, and this goes much more into detail, but the first step is recognize your habit or behavior and actually write it down. So if you chew your nails, for example, like if you have a nail biting habit and you're like, I just do it without even thinking. The goal is to become more aware of that particular habit in that actual behavior. So when are you doing it? How often are you doing it? Like you can carry around a little notebook or write it in your phone, like log every time you do it. And simply by being aware, we do so many things that are completely out of habit, we don't even think, we're on autopilot. And so you always hear this saying of like breaking a bad habit. And I think we need to change that to replacing a bad habit. It's really hard to just break a bad habit because you need to actually fill that pathway with something else, because a trigger. So recognize what the habit is in the behavior and become tuned into it. And that takes a little bit of practice. Isolate what the reward is. So in the nail biting example, is it a relief from being bored? Is it that you're hungry and so you're getting a little bit of oral fixation there when you're actually just putting your fingers toward your mouth? What is the reward? Like, why do you do that thing? And then the hard part is for a lot of people finding the trigger. So the trigger causes the behavior, and after the behavior you get the reward. And that pathway for a lot of people is so automatic that when you see the trigger or you engage in the trigger, you start to crave the reward. And so you automatically go through the habit behavior. So I want you to think about, and this is perfect for you, Rebecca, is replacing the behavior with something else. You need to establish a new pattern of behavior. So, little kids, how many times, like if you're a mom or if you remember growing up and you don't have kids, most little kids have a bedtime routine, right? We give them a bath, we tuck them in, we tell them a story, we turn off the lights, we give them a kiss, we pull up the covers, we say, I love you. And then that to them is a whole habit sequence that says, after all these things, my reward is is the sleep, right? That thing is going to happen at the end. But as adults, we so don't do that. So if you do have a bedtime routine and it's not working for you, I would challenge you to think about what you could replace the bedtime pattern with, and see if you can come up with something that suits you. And the tricky part about changing habits is that what one person recommends won't always work for someone else. So I'll tell you, for me, really quickly, what I do is I try to do this. I'm not always perfect with it, but I try about an hour before bedtime is when I start to get ready for sleep. And that includes things like feeding the cat, taking my magnesium, brushing my teeth. I actually usually brush my teeth and floss my teeth before I shower. So I'll take a shower, go to bed, read a little bit. So that's my bedtime routine. And I know to expect that at the end of all those things, that's when I'm supposed to sleep. So I would say, see if you can recognize the trigger. Like, when do you feel overwhelmed? What's that trigger? And then see if you can create a new pattern of behavior. So second thing to do when life gets crazy is see if you can replace patterns, bad habits that you aren't working for you, but you have to replace them with a new one. The third piece of advice I have is to keep it super simple. And I think this is really, my friend Jamie said this the other day, and it's something I've been thinking a lot about, is there's this tendency when you look at social media, you're like, wow, everybody has it all together. Everybody's so awesome. They're achieving all these things. Like they've got, the super successful job and the perfect kids and the great relationship, and they have a six pack, and they are always on top of their meal prep, and they're always, looking fancy. And, we see that that's what we see, but we don't see the truth. And so there's this tendency to think, shoot, I've got to have it all if I'm going to feel successful or if I'm going to feel fulfilled. And that puts a lot of pressure, and it's an internally generated pressure, but it's a lot of times because of what we see out there in, sort of internet land. And so I want you to kind of think about when you start to feel like life gets crazy is to actually simplify, not to try to do more, but to try to do less. And what you're doing less of, try to do it a little bit better. So it's this idea of like, if you spread your energy out over lots and lots and lots and lots of things, chances are you're not going to have enough energy to devote to all of those different things. And it's okay. We don't have to be masters of every single thing we try to do and do it perfectly. So I would just kind of throw that out there as, keep it super simple, we like to say. If you follow my Instagram, I say that quite a bit, but keep it super simple and recognize that this idea of balance, I know we use this word balance a lot. We're like, oh, we want life to be balanced. We want to have a balance between family and work and playtime. And a lot of times when life gets crazy, it is impossible to strike a balance. There are certain things that are going to demand more of your attention than others. And the things that are a high priority, and this is hard for a lot of women, including me, is to say no. And so there's a couple of concepts you can use here. The really easy one is, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. So start guarding your time a little bit more, right? Simplify. You don't have to say yes to everything. You've got to take care of you, because no one else is going to do that, unless you're a little kid, and no one here listening is a kid anymore. So no one's going to prioritize you and take care of you. So that would be one thing to think about. The other thing is, we have to just be okay with not being perfect. And I know this is so hard. It's easier said than done, but we're our own worst enemies when it comes to that sort of thing. And so really, being okay with being rough around the edges is, I think, really, really key. And this kind of goes along with another thing I wrote down here, which is to disconnect. So, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. And the other thing is, does it rate a 10 out of 10 for you? If you had to rate this thing on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of how important it is it a 10? And I got this concept from my coach, who got it from a book called Only Tens. And holy moly, that book changed everything for me. As a self-employed sort of entrepreneur and have my own business, I am so guilty of this shiny object syndrome. Like, I want to do this and I want to do that, and these people want this, and holy moly. I mean, think about how many people are demanding your attention in a day. And so if it's not a hell yes, it's a no thing is a little too scary for you, think about, is that thing a 10 out of 10 in terms of importance? Are you going to say yes to it? If it's not a 10, you've got to, if you keep saying yes to things that aren't 10s, you're just going to be diluting your energy across all of those things. So when life gets super crazy, you're going to stretch even thinner. I am enough. Love that one. Yeah, that's so good. So that one is really important. Like, start, and here's the other thing. We're so instant gratification. We're like, if somebody asks me to do something, I have to tell them immediately. Hey Jesse, what I have my coaching clients do is actually say, can I get back to you about that tomorrow? Or I'm going to have to get back to you on that tomorrow. Buy yourself a little, unless it's something crazy urgent, buy yourself a little bit of time to sit down and think and not be in the moment and write it down. Like, do I really want to do this thing? Is it a hell yes? Is it a 10? Why am I doing this? What am I going to be giving up if I do this? Time, energy, resources of some sort. And, sometimes just stepping back and saying, I'm sorry, I'm going to get back to you on that tomorrow, that decision that somebody wants you to make right then. You'll be able to see a little bit more clearly if it's worth it for you or not. And again, life gets nuts. Your time and your energy are precious resources. So start saying that. And it's amazing how my favorite phrase to use, and I hope I've not said this to anybody here, is if you want to say no and you want to phrase it like, you don't want to hurt someone's feelings if you say no. The way I phrase it is, I'm sorry, but I don't say I'm sorry. I say, I don't have space for that right now. I never apologize. I've not done anything wrong there, but I don't have space for that right now. Or simply, I don't have space for that. Because that puts it very much in the context of you. Instead of saying like, I'm not interested in what you're doing, right? Or a lot of us were very sensitive to making people feel bad. And that's okay. We can do it politely, but saying things like, I don't have space for that, or I don't have space for that right now, maybe you will later, is a really effective way to politely say no and buy yourself a little bit more time when life gets nuts. So that's another one. And so I'm going to step all these things out here in a minute and kind of bring it together and have a cohesive set of steps. But the other thing I like to think about is stress is the enemy of everything you want to change. This is a huge one. And when life gets crazy and more stressful, if you have a bunch of things that you're still trying to change, and where we talked about let go or be dragged, you're trying to fit your current circumstances into the box that was your old circumstances, however you want to phrase that. Stress is often, even if you have the best of intentions and you're doing a lot of things that are actually moving you forward, being stressed out about it can reverse your progress. And so, thanks, Jen. I would just, and don't get stressed out about it, but I would think about is, are the things that I'm clutching onto so tightly, am I doing that from a place of fear? This is actually step 2. I'm going to tell you in a minute. Am I doing it from a place of fear, or am I doing it from a place of love? And man, if you can answer that question for yourself, you're going to get pretty clear on what's causing you stress or what's maybe worth postponing or letting go of, or circling back around to when life calms down a little bit. So those are, just some general thoughts I wanted to throw out there. It's kind of hard not interviewing somebody, I'll be honest, because I'm like, okay, now I'm going to transition to talking about something else. It's a little bit odd to sort of talk to yourself on the screen, but I'm glad that you all are typing in questions there. And certainly if you have more questions that I haven't touched on, go ahead and toss that in the chat. So steps to do when life gets crazy and you're trying to work on things or change things, or sort of, like, hey, I'm trying to eat better, or I'm trying to exercise more, whatever it is, work on relationships, self-development, personal development. Okay, so the first thing is get clear. I'm reading this off my paper because I need to remember what I wrote. Get clear about why your goal matters to you. I've asked this to a couple of coaching clients, and they're like, you know, hey, why is that important to you? They're like, I don't know. I should be doing it. Someone told me. I think that's what I'm supposed to do. Sometimes you will have a clear answer right off the bat. And if you do, that's good. But step one is to get really clear about why your goal matters to you. And here's my favorite tip. You need to either write this down, write it on a piece of paper. By the way, writing things on paper is where our brains process it totally differently than if we type it out. So I like to write it down or talk about it with somebody you really trust who's not going to try to change your mind. They're just going to be an objective sort of listening ear because you're able to sort of talk it out. I don't like to just think about it because sometimes we get into the, I call this the brain drain, especially if you're in a pattern of negative thinking. The brain drain is sort of like your thoughts start to spiral down and down and down and down and down. And it's really hard to get out of your own head. So you need to actually get it out of your head and put it on paper or talk to somebody that you really trust. So that's step one. And I mean brutally clear. I had a professor in college who I really couldn't stand. And then at the end, I was like, actually, thank you, because you taught me a lot. I was a biology major in college, and I had to take this class called Writing in Biology. And we learned how to write papers. But the professor, he ripped apart everything I wrote because he kept asking me why, to justify what I was saying. And he was relentless. But it taught me something very important, which is, you know, you really don't stop at just the surface answer. It needs to go much deeper than that. So keep asking yourself why. And if you haven't arrived at sort of the true answer that's in your heart, and you will know, because it's usually something that you don't often speak, or that sometimes you're not truthful about to yourself, but like if you can get down that far, you'll know the true answer. So it's really important to know why this goal, this thing that you want to do, matters to you. So that's one. Two, and I said this earlier, so Alyssa wrote this here, exact question, is this thing that you want to do coming from a place of fear or a place of love? And if it's coming from a place of fear that you're not going to measure up, fear that you're not good enough, fear that somebody's going to judge you, fear that you will be a failure, whatever it is, if it's coming from a place of fear, it's going to be really hard to be satisfied with your work toward that goal, if that makes sense. Meaning you may actually achieve that goal and you may still feel unsatisfied with all the work you've just done, and you may not be happy. It's a tough realization, but it will help you to understand when things get crazy, is this thing that you so want worth your time? Okay, number three, is it a core value? Meaning, is it something that truly resonates with you? It's like part of the fabric of who you are. So one of my core values is hard work. That just resonates with me. And so if I'm going to attack a goal and I know that hard work is part of that, then I'm going to feel okay with that. If something doesn't resonate with one of my core values, then it's not going to be as fulfilling, even if I do that thing. Step 4 is to recruit a friend. And this totally depends on your personality and what jives with you. But having someone, and I don't necessarily mean someone you're going to confess as an accountability buddy, but when I say recruit a friend, I mean find somebody or find a community that supports those core values. So, you know, we have the all access pass for the summit. Part of that is the Facebook group. And that's been really amazing for some people because they've been able to connect with people who have similar core values to them who they might not have found otherwise. And a lot of people say, you know, I feel like I'm the Lone Ranger out there. I feel like I'm the only one. I don't have anybody in my circle of friends or in my immediate community. And certainly if it's in person, that's even better. But sometimes finding that support in those groups, those people who support you, and finding people who resonate with your core values is so important. Kim says, yeah, that's my biggest challenge. Absolutely. So it's hard, especially if people live in more isolated areas. It's sometimes hard to find that sort of thing as opposed to if you live in a big city. And that's where the online world can be very, very helpful. But I would say, you know, if you can make it to some kind of in-person event, even if it's once a year, and you're able to sit down and jive with your peeps, you know, you're like, you're my people. I don't even need to, like, I can see the way you're dressed from a mile away. Like, you're my people. I don't even need to explain it. You know, we sit down and we talk about the same things. You're my people. It's so, so, so important to do that. So when I say recruit a friend, I mean, find people that are into the same things as you are. Number 5 is create a detailed, so once you've like decided all these things and you have the support, is to create a detailed goal and an action item. So goal setting is great, but only if you do something with it. And so a lot of you have probably heard of a system of goal setting called SMART goals. It just means you have to be specific about your goal. It has to be something you can measure. It has to be something with a time attached to it. And it has to be something that's realistic. And so I like to think about chunking my goals instead of saying, I'm going to lose 50 pounds by next year. That seems like really far away. And if I only make a tiny bit of progress, I'm going to think, wow, I haven't made any progress. So if that's a goal for you, or like, I want to squat 300 pounds, make that goal, have a time constraint, say like, okay, by next month, I want to increase by 10 pounds. That is much more manageable, and give it a date, make it specific. Don't just say, I want to get healthy, or I want to eat better, or I want to sleep more. You've got to give it some constraints. And then an action item, like what are you actually going to do toward that goal? And this can circle back around to that idea of habit change. So this can substitute for that behavior. So it's like, okay, I am going to set if going to the gym 4 times a week is part of my goal, and I'm going to meet up with my training partner, I'm going to do stuff that's going to actually move me forward toward that. So maybe I'm going to set out all my gym clothes the night before as I'm getting ready for bed. That's an action item that you can then hold yourself accountable to. And step 6 is to schedule it, is to actually put it in a calendar or write it down, make it real, and hold yourself accountable to it by scheduling it. So get that, again, get it out of your head and actually on paper. And then step 7, kind of the last part about all this is my husband has started using a term that's sort of popular now, which is called ship it. So ship it means get it done and get it out. And what that means is, I like to say good and done is better than perfect and not done. Good and done is better than perfect and not done. So this kind of circles back to this idea that we're a work in progress. You know, it's going to be hard to achieve perfection. Does your pursuit of perfection come from a place of fear or a place of love? And are you sort of holding yourself back from achieving other things because you're still working on things that are good enough to either release out into the world or to say, I'm done with that? And so that's just kind of a final way to encourage you to say, hey, you know what? If I get to the gym 2 times this week because the little ones were sick and I had to, I had to pick my son or daughter up from school because they got sick during the day, and then I had to take care of them and I couldn't go to the gym like I normally do. Like, did you still get to the gym twice? Sweet. Like, you're doing okay. So when those unexpected things happen, you're able to better sort of absorb it and go, well, maybe I have a goal and I didn't quite hit that, but I'm still doing pretty good. So good and done is better than perfect and not done. So anyway, those are some of the action steps that I have for you. And certainly there are others, but I like to sort of keep things pretty simple. I mean, get clear. And part of getting clear is deciding, does it come from a place of fear or love? And is it a core value? Find a community that can, or at least someone else who can support you in that. Create a detailed goal and action item, put it in the calendar, and be good with good and done. And there you go. Perfectionism is an obstacle to excellence. I agree with that. Absolutely. As something, I've gotten a lot better with sort of saying, you know what, it's good, it's done. Just get it out there. So I'm interested to know what other questions you ladies have. I don't think we have any dudes on here tonight, but are there still questions that you have? And if you do have questions, put them in the chat box because I want to answer them and see what you think. Anything you would add to that? I'm going to take a sip of water, and I think it usually takes a couple seconds for the comments to pop up. So while I'm waiting for that, remember you can still watch day 7, 8, and 9. Obviously, you can go back. So that's 12 presentations that you can still see. If you have to prioritize, I would say day 7 because that's going to go away tomorrow. But day 7, 8, and 9, so that's 12 hours of video training that you can still see. And if you jumped on late, you missed me saying this, but there's going to be a special email going out tomorrow with something cool. No, it's not a trick. So please open that email tomorrow. It involves you giving your feedback about something and the chance to maybe see something again. So I'm just going to say that. So that email is going to come out tomorrow. Julianne says, when I'm feeling lazy, instead of beating myself up about it, I like to reflect on all the good habits I have and keep it in perspective. That is so important. And one of the things that I like to do, especially if I'm in a funk, is to sort of sit down, and even if it's just one thing, is to say, what good thing happened to me today? And sometimes it's really small. And that, to me, is actually where the magic is. If you can, and it takes practice, it's a skill, but if you can start to recognize the good small things that happen to you in your life becomes abundantly happier. Because, and I've said this on I think probably on an old Periscope, social media makes us think, especially we're so connected that way. Social media makes us think, wow, look at everybody else. All these crazy, amazing things are happening to them. They're on a vacation to wherever, the Caribbean. My friends are on a vacation. Somebody just got a raise. Like all these amazing things are happening to everybody else except for me. What the heck is wrong with me? My life's so boring. I'm not accomplishing anything. I should be more exciting and interesting. Like, what do I have to be happy about? And that is the big sort of lie of social media, is that we see what everybody is sort of like the great stuff they're putting up there. And certainly there's bad stuff too. But we tend to think everybody else has it nailed and I'm totally over here in Loserville, because we get blind to the little things in our day that are full of joy and it's a feeling, and I can't explain it. It's like when I take a walk with my husband to go get coffee in the morning. We call it our handy walk because we hold hands. It's so silly, but that feeling of happiness that you have is just like, even if it's a little flutter, it's like a contentedness. My argument, and I've made this argument before, is that life's happiness is in the moments of quiet contentment and not in the woohoo, this is exciting and like I'm gonna pop champagne and look at this. This is a once in a, blue moon event. And so I think if you can start to train yourself to find the small moments of happiness, you become abundantly happier with the quiet stuff. And that's the magic. Thank you for all this goodness. The summit has been seriously impactful on me. I'm really, really, I was going to say glad and great. So I said great. I'm really glad to hear that. Kara says, thanks so much for the action steps. Love the good and done. Can't thank you enough for the amazing women who contributed to the incredible summit. I agree. I want to hug them all so hard. So much to think about and putting into practice. And then Alejandra says, I'm working on taking a rest day for real instead of not doing this or that and feeling guilty about it. Such a huge difference. Yeah, when you give yourself a little space to sort of breathe and decompress. And Teresa Larson, so if you didn't see Teresa Larson's presentation, she talks about quiet and being quiet and how the absence of things to do. A lot of us are like, I can't sit still. I have to be constantly busy. Sometimes the idea of sitting and being quiet with yourself is really scary. And her presentation was super awesome. So if you liked it, watch for tomorrow's email. So maybe you'll get a replay. But that presentation was so great because she talked about the fact that self-care oftentimes comes from a place of being quiet and sitting quietly with oneself. Not the easiest thing sometimes. If you want to introduce more quiet time, but sitting quietly, literally, and just not doing anything is freaky for you, I really would recommend a meditation app. So one that I like is called Headspace. It's not a woo-woo kind of meditation. It's just a guided meditation. It's by a guy with a British accent. So if you're into that stuff, thumbs up. But it just gives your mind something to do. And that if it wanders, that's okay. You need to kind of bring it back, reel it back in. But that's a really great place to start. And they have some that are 5 minutes long. So it's called Headspace. And there are tons of other apps that are really good for that. So if you want to introduce some quiet time, but you don't really know, you're like sitting by myself with myself is overwhelming, that could be a place to start. Rhonda says, time for yourself is important. I didn't realize how crazy busy and incapable of just being lazy I was until I realized it's impossible for me to just stop and do nothing. Dr. Wall's interview was a wake-up call to be purposeful with downtime. Yeah, and as caretakers and moms and wives and house, we do so many household things and jobs, and there's again that pressure to sort of do it all and always be busy and always be serving others. And service to others is certainly can be a very fulfilling part of a well-rounded life. But again, if it's at the expense of taking care of you, it's a bit of a sad place. It's a bit of a like, wow, I don't know myself all that well, or I don't take care of myself quite as well. We just blipped there for a second. The call was lost. Okay, well, we're going to wrap this up here in a minute anyway. I want to honor your time and thank you for jumping on tonight, those of you who were here, and if you're watching the replay later on, to honor your time as well. A couple of things I want to mention really quickly before we go, and this is sort of in the bucket of housekeeping, but I just want to make sure that everybody knows about this stuff. So the first thing is that if you're interested in watching, yeah, Jen, I dropped off for a minute. I should be back though. Yeah, I don't know. Google Hangouts freaked out on me for a second. So the thing is, if you're interested in picking up the all access pass, please, there is no pressure for me here. That's not how I work. But if you're interested, I want to give you a heads up that on Sunday night, so Sunday at 11:59 p.m. Pacific time, the price is going to go up to its final price, which is the regular price of $197. If you're at all interested in it, you might want to act pretty soon so you can get that before it goes up in price by $50. And as much as I've had a couple of people email me and ask if they could have the lower price. And I'm one of those people, I'm like, some people paid $147, and so I don't feel right about making discounts and stuff like that. So I want to honor that. But if you are interested, the Facebook group is incredible. Tons of resources. You can watch the videos and stuff at any time. So I just want to throw that out there. The second thing I want to mention, and this will come out in an email as well, is that in the summer, and this is super exciting because you're like the first people to hear about this. In the summer, I'm going to be putting together a 12-week mastermind coaching program, and it's called Strength School. And so if underneath the video, there's a button you can click to read more about what it is. But basically, it's an online mastermind where you get to decide, you get to create an action plan to say, like, these are the things I want to work on, and this is what I want to create for myself. People have been asking me for small group coaching for a really long time, and I either have like my Healthy, Happy, Harder to Kill program, which is a big group, or I've got one-on-one clients, which isn't always affordable for people. And I got asked a lot to put together a 12-week online program. And so that's what I have done. It's going to be starting in the summer, and it's 3 phases. So it's mind, body, and spirit. And in every phase, there's 4 weeks of modules. And instead of a coaching program that's like, you're going to eat this on this day, you're going to do this, and you're going to like that, and you're going to do the formula that I tell you. It's more of, here's what we're going to investigate today. So you're going to sort of assess and brainstorm and investigate and create something. And so it's more of an opportunity for people who are ready to take some big action and who are ready to like, dude, like, I learned a lot, but I'm ready to sort of make some stuff happen for myself. But you know that a coach, having someone there to support you, is where sort of the magic happens. So that's about Strength School. And like I said, I'm going to send out an email about that as well. But I wanted to mention it to you tonight, so you're the first to hear about it. And I am running a little early bird special on that as well. And that's good for a week. So if you need some time to think about it, you want to look at the page and see what it's all about, that early bird price will be good for a week, and spots are limited. So once they fill up, I'm going to close it, and we'll do it again next year, 2017. So Strength School, check it out. Button is right under the video. And I'd love to see you there, because this has been truly, I know a lot of you have told me it's been a life-changing experience. And I've told this to my coach, because yes, I have a coach, not just a coach at the gym. I do have a coach at the gym, but I have a coach in sort of business and life. She's all in one. Her name's Allegra. But I told Allegra, and I've talked a lot with her about the summit. We've talked the whole way through, because it's taken me 6 months to do the summit, and from sort of idea to completion. And this has changed my life. So I want to sincerely thank you for believing in me and for tuning in. I know there are so many summits out there, and so many people want your time. And now I'm going to get all emotional, but that's okay, because it's this event and bringing these women together and bringing you here has changed my life. It really has. And I have a very clear vision now for what my purpose is going forward, and how I can best use my skills to serve you. So thank you so much. 7 o'clock on the dot. I did it. But if you have any questions, comments, feedback, feel free to email me, steph@stephgaudreau.com, or you can find the contact form on the Summit website, or send me a private message on Facebook, or you know where to find me. But I wanted to say thank you again and wishing you all a very good night, and I'll see you very soon. Take care.